know God, and you know God. He uses perfect tense verbs. Would you go there to 1 John with me? 1 John chapter 1. Yeah, I go already. In 1 John chapter 1, he says and I'm going to start with verses 1. He says, what was from the beginning that we have heard, that we have seen with our eyes, that is a perfect tense verb, suggesting that the action was a completed action and it stands in a state of having been completed and it continues to be completed. So he says, we've seen with our eyes, we have beheld with our hands, and concerning the word of life, and the life was manifested, and we have seen and bore witness, and proclaimed to you the eternal life, which was with the Father, and was manifested to us. He said, what we have seen and heard, we proclaim it to you. Also, that you also may have fellowship with us, and indeed our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Jesus Christ. And these things we write, so that our joy may be made complete, may be made whole, may be made complete with joy, the idea. That you're going to fulfill my joy, that we share in this fellowship with both God the Father and Jesus Christ, his Son. So we see as John starts out the letter, he starts out with the confirmation that their faith is in Jesus, and that using these perfect tense verbs, there's a completed action that's already taking place in their lives, and they're already having fellowship. They've already touched it, they've already seen it, and they've already heard from him. Therefore, they stand in a state of having been saved.
Wow.
That's the truth that John is sharing with his audience. So, as we look here, and I want to share with you, we have a life of one Gaius, and I'm going to make reference to Gaius. Gaius is the person that John writes to in 3 John. And we're going to look at that life of Gaius. Before we look at that life of Gaius, let's look at the context of what we're going to be looking at, or going through. And that's 2 John. Look at 2 John chapter 1. You can first 2 John up real quick in the Bible. Okay, in 2 John in chapter 1, here we read, the elder to the chosen lady and her children, whom I love in the truth. And not only I, but also all who know the truth, for the sake of the truth which abides in us and will be with us forever. Grace, mercy, and peace will be with us from God the Father and from Jesus Christ, the Son of the Father, in truth and love. He said, I was very glad to find some of your children walking in the truth, just as we have received commandment to do from the Father. He said, now I ask you, ladies, not as writing to you a new commandment, but the one which we have had from the beginning, that we love one another. And this is love, that we walk according to his commandment. This is the commandment, just as you have heard from the beginning, that you should walk in it. What does it look like to walk in it? What does it look like? Based on what you've already heard, what does it look like to walk in the truth? To walk in love. Because that's what John puts us into his own. What does that look like? Well, John uses several characteristics, several ways of approaching that. One being in chapter 3, where he talks about Cain, the love of Cain for his brother Abel. That not to love like Cain did, because his deeds were evil, showing that his deeds were unrighteous and his brother Abel was righteous, and the one that was of the evil deed did what? He attacked the one that was righteous, because the one that was evil did not understand, did not know God the Father and his Son Jesus. It's the lesson that John is teaching. He's saying, I'm using Abel and Cain came as an example of that. What it looks like not to love your brother. So, as we look here, let's look at a couple things here. He says, in one, he says, love is the truth. That is, looking at Gaius, look at it in chapter 3. I mean, 1 John, 3 John, chapter 1. 3 John, chapter 1. It's just right across from chapter 2 from 2nd John. Listen to what he says about Gaius. And we're going to look at Gaius' life and put it into perspective of what it looks like to walk in truth. He says, this elder, to the beloved Gaius, whom I love in the truth, beloved, I pray that in all respect you may prosper and be in good health, just as your soul prospers. Now, one of the things that's been used, this text has been misapplied, and the way that it's been misapplied is to teach that God expected and God was emphasis on wealth and physical health for the believer. That this is what God's objective was, that the believer was to have good health and very wealthy. Any of us fitting that description? As far as the health part, I'm fitting that description less and less, because physically my body is getting a little bit over and it aches a little bit more. So I'm not prospering physically, ideally, as people would think. Huh? And neither are you. You're getting a little older too. What about wealth? Everybody here wealthy? Well, many teach a lesson in a ministry of spiritual prosperity based on this text. So we see that John, as he writes and making reference to Gaius, he says, I pray that in all respects you may prosper and be in good health, just as your soul prospers. That word prosper there, if you go there and look and do a little word study there, that word doesn't mean to prosper in the way of material gain, but prosper in having a very safe journey. It means to have a safe journey. So he said that I want you to have, I'm desiring and I'm wishing. Just like I got a letter this week from a man and he sent me some things and when I opened the box, there was a letter on the top and it said, Charles, how are you doing? I hope this letter finds you well and in good spirits. Basically, a cardinal thing that we would do in writing a letter. I mean, to some degree, John is stating that he's wishing Gaius wellness. Because remember, Gaius is a hospitality commitment within himself. Because we find him in Romans chapter 16, where Paul makes reference to him, that he was my host. That he was the host. He was known for bringing people in and the journeymen that when they came by, that he would take care of them and support them and then send them on their way. And we know that Gaius is a pretty prominent person in the Bible because we find in Romans and Acts chapter 19 and both chapter 20 that he's made mention of being there when the riot is in Ephesus as well as when the elders were to meet at Troas. He was there also. So we see that Gaius is a prominent figure. So rightly so to write to Gaius, but if you'll notice, John did not give his name as John the Apostle, but as what? The elder. And the elder to a person as hospitable and meeting the needs of the brethren, of which we see here, John showing the grand example of loving your brother. And he says, he goes to the point of even showing hospitality to the strangers as they come by. And not only that, that is going to be a testimony. That is your testimony. So when you think about your walk, if people went away and said, well, your walk, John, Charles, Anthony, Mark, his walk is of a good report. And it's according to the truth. It's because of the truth of the gospel. It's the reason why you walk the way you walk. Would they say that about you? Or would they say his walk is much like his father's walk? Or his walk is much like Cain's walk. That he walks like Cain. He hates his brother. If you hate your brother, the walk is not of the truth. If you hate your brother, if you have hatred, if you have hostility towards your brother, then the walk is inconsistent with the truth. Because look at something. I'm going to share something with you. The word that's used here in the word of truth. It says truth is it comes from the Strong's word. It is objectively used as well as subjectively used. It says it's to signify the reality lying at the base of an appearance and or the manifested virtual essence of a matter. That is, it's the source of the behavior. So what it means is, if I'm loving, my loving is of the truth. Listen to what John writes. Go back there in chapter 1, verse 1 there of 3 John. Look at verse 1. He said, the elder to the beloved Gaius, whom I love in the truth. Beloved, I pray in thee all respect, that you prosper and be in good health, just as your soul prospers. I pray that you be well and that you have a safe journey. And the safe journey is through life. He said that he's not necessarily going on a journey, but he's going on the journey. And that is that Jesus makes the statement in John 14 and 14:6 when he says, I am the truth, I am the way, and I am the life. Notice he uses a definite article in making description of each one of those. That is, I am the truth, I am the reality, I'm the basis of the life of which you live. I'm it. I'm the way. That way is the journey. Same word is used here, that I am the journey that you're undertaking. That's why Jesus can say, bring all of your burdens, bring all of your cares, bring them to me. Because I'm the way to get them relief. I'm the way to give them relief. So when we look at the idea that Jesus, when he makes that statement, that he's not only that, he's the life also. When Paul writes to those Colossians in chapter 3, he says, Christ who is your life, when he shall appear, then you shall appear with him. You're going to be with him. Guess what? You're going to be of the truth. You're going to be of the truth. You're going to be experiencing some things. Look back at 2 John. Look back at 2 John. And look at what we'll be experiencing. And I want to pick it up. Look at verse 4. He says, I was very glad to find some of your children walking in the truth, just as we have received commandment to do from the Father. Now, if you'll notice something here, he tells that lady, he would make reference to her and her children. But when he writes to Gaius, he says, to you and my children. Showing that Gaius is also a part of the church in that Gaius probably started churches in certain areas, or played a prominent role, because Gaius is looked at as a leader, as someone who might have children, who make reference, just as Paul would do, make reference to those who he baptized as his children. Notice and remember in They were of the same fellowship. As we look here and see that in what was it, verse 4 of 3 John, he said, I have no greater joy than this, to hear that my children walk in the truth. Now he's writing these 3 letters and probably around the same time. They were all written around the same time frame. And he makes reference that his joy is complete, or his joy, he has no greater joy. You understand what he's saying when he makes that statement? He says, nothing gives me more joy than to hear that my children are walking according to the faith. Because walking according to the faith also defines the believer's path. The walk according to the truth defines that the path is in Jesus. That Jesus is the way. That he's the truth. And that he's the life of that believer. Interesting. Look at John 13, if you will. We've been talking about this in Sunday school. In John 13, where Jesus is talking to his disciples. And talking to his disciples, he's sharing with them, I believe it's 30. He's sharing with them this new commandment they're questioning about. Look at verse 31. I'm going to start with verse 31 of John 13. He said, when therefore he had gone out, Jesus said, now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and will glorify him immediately. Little children, I am with you a little while longer, and you will seek me, and I will say to the Jews, I now say to you, where I am going, can I come? A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another, even as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this, all men will know that you are my disciples, if you have love one for another. Showing that this is not only the assurance, but this is the evidence to both them. They are assured, and they have confidence for God because they are loving the brother. They are following the example, as Jesus tells them, that he has given them an example. And that example is to love one another as I have loved you. But even more than that, in the continuation, that the report, the testimony of you, of the world is going to be that you are Jesus' disciples. So, in the areas of which we live, in the path in which we walk, in our daily lives, is the testimony that they are walking according to the disciple of Jesus. Is that what they would say about me? Is that what they would say about you? Are the people that we come in contact with on a daily basis, would they say that we are disciples of Jesus? Or would they say that we are not disciples of Jesus because our walk portrays us? When Jesus tells the disciples this, he's telling them that your life is going to be evident that you're either a disciple of mine or you're not. Well, we know what John says about the one that's not a disciple, that's not of the truth, and does not love his brother. He's in darkness. He's in darkness even until then, and until now. He's still in darkness. So when we look at the idea of the life, is the life lived, is it a replica of Jesus' nature, of Jesus' character to love? Can it be identified as loving God and loving your brother? If you would, look back, if you will, in John 14. Look there, if you will. We're right there already. When Jesus makes a statement, walking by means of love. Show you one more thing here. Look back at 1 John. Look at 3 John 1 again. It says, the elder to the beloved Gaius, whom I love in truth. Showing that truth is the foundation, is the basis for his love. See, we talk about being motivated by love, but in order to be motivated by love, it has to resonate from the truth. See, we're busy trying to love, but we don't know where the foundation of what a motivation to do it comes from. It comes from what we trust in. It comes from what we believe. It comes from the truth. The truth are the facts about a matter or concern in its completeness. And that is Jesus for us who believe. That Jesus is as Paul wrote to those Colossians, you are complete in him. He has everything that you need. Therefore, when Gaius sent those men out, guess what? When John writes them, he says, when you send them out, you send them out with the assurance that they don't need anything. And they shouldn't ask for anything from, they didn't need to ask for anything from the Gentiles. Know why? Because the one that is loving of the truth, he's relying on God to make his provision. That's what Paul is writing to those Philippians. He said, God will supply all of my needs. He said, I have a need, but I'm not in want. He said, because my attitude is that I'm depending on God in all that I stand in need of because I'm in the ministry. I'm doing what I'm doing for him, to please him. Therefore, he will provide the necessary things that I need in order to accomplish his will. To set the Philippians at ease, this should set us at ease. It should set us at ease in that when we're loving a brother, it's our evidence. When we're loving based on the truth, that believing that Jesus is God's Son is the basis for that truth. God's Son is the truth, he's the way, and he's the life. He's the life. Therefore, we find ourselves a lot less stressed of trying to make it happen in these relationships. We find ourselves a lot less worrisome about what's going to happen next because we have no control. We find ourselves a whole lot more confident that we can go to God. And I believe the statement in the prayer this morning was in honesty. If you're not loving your brother, you're not being honest when you go to God. If you ain't taking care of that relationship of loving your brother. If you're not concerning yourself with the relationship of loving the brethren, if you're not doing it, then to go to God is not incompetent. It's not in honesty. And guess what? You can't do what you're asking for because it's outside of the path. It's not on the path. You can't get what you're asking for. It's not on the path. Because we want what pleases us. We want what we want. And what we like. And what we need. And what we think. And we lose sight of what loving the brother and loving God really means. It means that everything that God has required and every objective that God has set forth has been met by these two things, loving God and loving the brethren. And the evidence is in the object of that love, and that the object of that love is Jesus. Let's look at one more thing, and I'm going to shut it down. Look at John 1:17. John writes concerning gift of the forgiveness of sin. That gift of having sin forgiven, and not only that, that also the guilt of the individual, the guilt can be removed based on trusting his example. And the life that we live is the example, is the following of that example. He is the fullness, for he is the fullness we have all received, and grace upon grace. That's who Jesus is. That's who he is to the believer. John, there was many that didn't receive him, but the ones that did, they became children, born of God. And then those that were born of God, they were in the bosom also. Because where he is, you will be also, is what his words were. And he's returning to where he came, from God. So with this being the life of the believer today, having trusted in the sacrifice of Jesus, he has forgiveness of sin, and not only that, the truth came by way of you now. It's a realization. It's a fact that it's evident that it's a fact that Jesus is God's Son, and that's the reliance of the believer. That he is God's Son, and he brought grace and truth to him, and he made his life a different life. Looking at Romans chapter 6, as I bring it to a close. In Romans chapter 6, our Hall of Fame text of the idea of how we come into this relationship. Somebody texted me and said, look at verses 6 verse 4. And therefore, it says, therefore we have been buried with him through baptism into death, in order that as Christ was raised from the dead through the glory of the Father, so we too might walk in newness of life. That walk in newness of life is a life with Christ. A life with the one of the truth, who is of the truth, of the way, and the life. Now we have that relationship to walk with him. He says, for if we have been buried, if we have been united with him in the likeness of his death, that is, we have identified in his death, certainly we shall also in the likeness of his resurrection, knowing this, that our old self was crucified with him, that our body of sin might be done away with, that we should no longer be slaves to sin, but he who has died and freed us from sin, which is the result of that grace and that forgiveness, is that you're now free. You're free to do what? Walk in the truth. Wow. You're free to love your brother. Wow. You're free to love each other. You're free to show hospitality to those who come by in need. You're free. You're free to be a service to God. You're free to do God's will. You're free from your own destruction. We're free from destroying ourselves when we put our trust in Jesus. Wow. That's our whole life, our whole objective. And for it to be simply put, as I bring it to a close, this identifying, if we haven't identified with Christ's death, as God has called us to do, and that is to be buried with him in baptism, that we identify that his death is the payment price for our sins and our life. That he becomes that life, having raised us from the dead, just as he was raised from the dead. He has the power to do that. Are we trust in that? If we have trust that, it's going to be evidence. The evidence is in loving our brother. The evidence is loving God and loving our brother, loving one another, because in doing so, now we can't get away with thinking that we can say it, because John, he smashes that too. He takes that right off the table. He says you don't love in word and language. Don't love in word and tongue. Of which we know that in their case, when he addresses that them speaking in tongues is no benefit to the one that don't understand what you're saying. And if you're just saying you love me and never show me, guess what? The evidence is that you don't love me. So the evidence is in the believer that he knows whether or not he's loving his and our loving one another, it's going to be based on what we believe about the truth. So let this be our encouragement today. And if there's any that have not identified with that, have not identified with walking with Jesus, so that, guess what? You can't stop, you can't fix the problem between you and the people you have issues with, the people that you're not loving. You can't fix it, because guess what? There's only one that can fix it, and that's Jesus. He says, I'm the truth, I'm the way, and I'm the life. I'm the path to being able to being sustained in order to carry out loving your brother and loving God. I'm the only way. And that's our only hope. And let that be firmly seated and planted in our heart. That's what we need to be focused on. That's what we need to be focused on. If there's any that desire